Welcome to Replenish, the atmosphere of discovery, where we discover the Master's plan for our lives. Today's session is titled Priorities. So, to prioritize something means to put it at the beginning, to put it in a certain place, or to place it in the order of its value to you. Okay. It can mean you put it first in the amount of time you give to it, the order of its occurrence or urgency, and or its importance. Okay. So you are giving something or someone the right to proceed before another thing or person. You, when we're talking about priorities, you are the one that decides what order something goes in or someone goes in according to its order of importance. So every action, feeling, and thought has an order, meaning that one will take precedence over the other. Every action, feeling, and thought has an order, which means that one will take precedence over the other. So you have a concern, interest, or preference in what thoughts you want to think, right? You have a concern, interest, or preference in what feelings you want to feel. You have a concern, interest, or preference in what you choose to do or how you behave. Okay. So we should have certain foundational principles that are first, right? They are the priority. Your foundational principles are the priority, and you don't allow a change in your circumstance to shift your foundational principles. Okay. The principles that come later, they're in an order by themselves after your foundation has been set and met. Okay. So you have your foundational principles that are first, they are the priority. And then you have principles after that, after your foundation has already been set and met. And so we use the acronym ANCHOR to help you set your foundation, right? And that acronym stands for authenticity, nourishment, contentment, honor, order, and relationships. So you should have set some foundational principles for each of those things, right? Authenticity, nourishment, contentment, honor, order, and relationships. All of those things are very important foundational things that needs to be set. Okay. So after your foundation has been set, your main priorities are your health, your relationships, and your purpose. Okay. We like to add things and feelings into that, right? But your main priorities are your health, your relationships, and your purpose. Everything else in your life fall into one or all of those categories. So you have priorities related to and driven by your purpose. You have financial, familial priorities. You have spiritual priorities. You have economic priorities, right? So on and so forth. Okay. These are put in place after your foundation has been set and met. So when all the categories of priorities that you have, God must be considered first, not just in the spiritual category. And this is where a lot of followers of Christ mess up. Okay. They just put God first in the spiritual category, but don't put him first in all of the other categories. He must be considered, right? If you consider yourself one who operates according to kingdom standards. Okay. We cannot proclaim and profess Christ, but don't put God first in our priorities, but we claim to operate according to the kingdom principles, right? If you are one who does not believe in Jesus yet, or you just found out about him, then your goal is to get to know as much as you can about him, right? And then he'll guide you in how to put him first. So for this portion, I'm kind of talking to people who already know God, already proclaim to be a part of the kingdom. Okay, I want to talk to you about your priorities, right? So Jesus can be your foundation spiritually, but if he's not master, or if he's not first financially or economically, right? If he's not first physically and mentally, then your priorities are out of order, right? You must acknowledge his lordship in every area first. Okay, so justice, peace, and joy are the kingdom attributes that you must seek first in order for everything to be added to you. And we know that this is in Matthew 6:33. Okay, so justice means to be right in the eyes of God, right? God should be your moral standard. Okay, your conduct is justified by God in every decision in order to maintain social harmony. So justice or righteousness is something that we must consider first in all of the things, all of the categories of the priorities, right? Also, peace. Peace means complete and whole in your mind, right? Completely sound, not double-minded, right? It means to be absent of conflict. These are the things that you must consider first. Joy, the source of your gladness, right? Which is deeply rooted in the presence of God, irregardless of your external circumstances. These three things are to be considered first in our list of priorities, no matter what category it is in. Okay, these are the things that we seek first. They are the priority if we proclaim to be a part of God's kingdom. Okay, if you are not, then of course they won't be your priority. So before your will and your physical preferences come into play, we seek first the kingdom, which is described as justice, peace, and joy. Okay, and so we often put our carnal preferences before the kingdom and wonder why, when we get what we think we want physically, we are still not satisfied. But true satisfaction comes and is found in the completion of your purpose. And who is your purpose given by? It is given by God, right? That drive you have that often gets misdirected to other things. That was for the completion of your purpose. It's for the reason that you were born. That's what that drive is for. And so often we get turned in a different direction and we wonder why, oh, this thing I was chasing that I thought I wanted, I don't feel satisfaction because it wasn't a part of your purpose, right? When your priorities become anything outside of your purpose, right, you will find yourself unsatisfied. You'll have feelings of missing something that you can't explain, or there is this hole that you recognize, but that you cannot fill. And this is because you're outside of the parameters. You have gone in another direction and you have vacated your path. Your path, the path that you're on, it should be full of exchanges, right? That we're all making with each other as we fulfill our purpose. Okay. The part I play on your path is this session right now, right? And then I continue in my purpose and you continue in yours, right? And what it looks like is kind of like how the nervous system looks. It's a bunch of different paths, right? That your nerves have. Some make immediate contact and some don't, but they are all still intertwined and they're all still connected and they all still affect one another. Okay. So when you don't go the way that you are supposed to, your body will alert you, right? The atmosphere that you're in will alert you. The places and spaces that you are in will begin to feel too small, right? You will know when you're not on the right path. And the reason why you're not is because you placed your priorities in the wrong order. Okay. Daily priorities that are out of order affect how much time, resources, and strength you use up, right? Some of the stuff that we're putting a lot of time in may not be necessary if our priorities were in order, right? We waste and miss pivotal moments in our lives when our priorities are out of order. And so our priorities should align with our values, right? If you have no values or you lack a solid foundation, your priorities will always be out of order. Okay. So second to consider is your immediate family, right? That is under your authority, right? Because you can have family that's not under your authority. And we're talking about like your extended family, your parents, your adult children, uh, even runaway children. Though they're not under your authority. And you can also have family that is not your priority because of the choices they decided to make, right? And then there's this because of proximity. Maybe they're too far away. If you are married, your priorities are filtered through your spouse, and those agreements are made between you two and God. You have to consider your spouse when you think about what your priorities are. So if you're married or you're under someone else's authority, right? Sometimes you have to go under somebody else's authority because of repeated mistakes that you've made. So when you're married and you're under someone else's authority, then your priorities are filtered through more than just what you decide. Okay. So you want to measure the impact that your priorities will have based on your values and the urgency. A heavy topic involving priorities is other people, right? That's other people can be the reason why we alter where our priorities are. So we have a hard time placing people and their values and their choices in their correct order, right? Every person wants to be first on someone else's list of priorities, but no person is first. God is, right? And if you put a person in his place, then they have become a God to you, which means you better hope that when you pray that they answer you, and what they can do is better than what God can do for you, right? So people like to be your priority because they value themselves more than your time, more than your strength, more than your values, more than what you have going on, right? And people that value their stress and their circumstances over you are not your priority. I'm going to say that again. People that place a higher value, a higher priority over their situations than you, they are not your priority. Okay, because they'll just dump it on the next person and the next person until they find somebody that's willing to make them more important than themselves. So remember, I said purpose is one of those priorities, right? And let me give you an example of how this works in a family situation. It is understood, or I understand what my husband's purpose is, right? We have that understanding what each other's purpose is. Okay, so my husband has been given a sacrificial heart, right? And that means that he will put his life, his resources, his time on the line for others without expecting anything in return, right? This is how he shows the grace, the mercy, the protection, the provision of God to this world, right? That is a priority, and he measures that between me and God. And guess who gets to decide when it's appropriate and when it's not? God does, right? So even if me as his wife feel like some things that he has done or will do will take him away from me, if God has sanctioned it, then I have to get to a place where I'm more willing to see the completion of his purpose than my comfort. Okay. So if God did not sanction it, then my husband has an obligation to consider the risk and to place it at a lower priority. Okay. And so this doesn't just apply to marriage, right? It applies to friendships, it applies to work relationships, it applies to family relationships. You don't want to value your purpose more, not your purpose, but your comfort more than someone completing their purpose, right? It doesn't matter who it is. Okay. If something you are doing for work is out of the will of God, say you have to lie, cheat, or be unjust towards someone, then you need to consider where you place that job on your priority list. Is it worth it? Right? If a relationship with a certain person is pulling you away from your purpose, why is hanging out with them a higher priority than you completing the task that you needed to complete? Okay, so this is how we put things out of order, and they cost us, right? So when you try to make things mean the same where one should have precedence over the other, you will have a continual struggle with completion, right? With decision making, with anxiety and depression. right? Because you're trying to make something equal that's not equal. Okay. And the reason why is because it is stressful to maintain an unhealthy balance. And that's what you're doing. You're trying to keep an unhealthy balance. And balance means more of everything being in order and less of everything being equal when we're talking about priorities. Okay. When we're talking about priorities, you're not trying to make everything equal because it's not equal, right? The reason why you prioritize is because it's not equal. So you're wanting everything to be in order, not equal. Does that make sense? Everything is not equal. Something must come first. There's a thought you must think first, right? Before you act. There's an act that you must do before you do something else. Okay? Everyone does not get equal parts of you. Okay. And you should not give more of you to the things that are not in the correct order, meaning the things of the lowest importance, you're giving 80% to 80% of your resources, 80% of your time. And the thing with the higher priority, you're just giving the bare minimum, right? Everything has its time, its space, and place. And when you allow things to change spaces or to get out of place or take too little or too much time, something else has to give or be forced out of order to make up for it. To change its place, to change its space, or to take more time. Something else has to give, right? Because it's not all equal. So your feelings are not a priority. Neither are other people's opinions, right? Temporal things are not a priority, and things out of your control are not a priority. Okay. So we can address these things after we have accomplished those things that are a priority, right? You don't put those temporal things in front of the things that must get done, right? And so again, we make these things our priority. And then the set plan for us is messed up, and we're now on a different path, which is not the path that causes fulfillment and satisfaction, right? And so we often prioritize friendships over purpose, right? We prioritize our job over our health. We prioritize opinions over meaningful relationships. We fail to have balance, peace, and or the power needed to drive us into that next season of our lives. And if we do happen to make it to the next season, we have these unnecessary burdens and we can't even enjoy the reward of us enduring and making it through and accomplishing the things that we have accomplished. The rest that we were supposed to receive is now exchanged for us, having to play catch up. And then that cycle continues until our health fails, until our mental capacity dwindles, or until we burn every bridge and every beneficial relationship that we've had. Okay. So you want to put things in the right order. And we continue to put things of lesser significance in higher places because of how we feel in a certain moment, right? Or how someone else feels. Most of the time when we do this with people, they're not going to even be in our lives in the next 5 years. Some of them in the next 5 minutes, right? And so we won't make the phone call. We won't send the email. We won't take the trip. We won't set up the meeting. We won't end that relationship. We won't change our career because of things having the wrong level of importance. Okay. When someone's opinion has a higher priority than your financial ability, you begin to live beyond your means. This is an example or examples of how we don't put things in the right order. When someone's pride has a higher priority than their failing health, then they create irreversible damage or they die, right? When your fear of rejection has a higher priority than you achieving a better career, then you are forced to live below your capacity, right? When your feelings have a higher priority than God's plan, then you miss the appointed time for your vision to manifest, right? It costs us something when we have things out of order. And so everyone who needs to set the base for your values I want you to go back and listen to session 11. That's the foundational principle session. Okay. Without having a solid place where you are grounded, your priorities will continue to be based on what others prioritize, even if it's detrimental to you and your family. It will be based on temporary feelings and oftentimes just blind, fear-based decisions. Okay. Our values, remember, our priorities should align with what our values are. But our values often get mixed up with societal obligations and standards. Okay. When you list your priorities, which ones are in the rank they're in because of society, and it's not something you truly place value in? Which ones are based on the opinions of other people? And which ones are transferred from other people, and it shouldn't even be on your list. It has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with your health, your relationships, or your purpose. But it's based on what someone else said or what someone else is doing or someone else's opinion, right? So we have short-term priorities, which are daily and weekly things that we must take care of, okay? And in this, I want you to think about the ones that are urgent and impactful, those things that need immediate attention. These have priority, and I want you to write those down. You need to know what you place value in, okay? What is the most urgent thing that needs to happen? That's not related to your feelings or opinions, but facts. Because there's things that we have to do, but because we don't feel like it, we don't do it, but it is urgent and it is important. Okay. And so there is a difference between your feelings and your emotions. Okay. If your emotional health is suffering right now, that is urgent and it can impact your physical health, right? So managing your emotions is a priority, but you wouldn't put that before eating, but some people do, right? You don't put the thing that causes you to stress before your emotional health. So we're talking about putting things in order. So we know someone stresses us out. Well, you don't have to deal with that person, right? So, but you're putting their opinion on, if you kind of fall back a little bit, you're putting that opinion, that you're making that a priority over managing your emotions, right? So I want you to write down all of the urgent things and the things that will immediately impact your life, right? Write all of those things down. And from that list, put them in order of importance. And just to give you some examples, what are some of the immediate issues health-wise? So you have some immediate issues, there's a sense of urgency, and then you have some, hey, I need to gradually make these changes. What are some immediate issues in your relationships? What are some immediate issues concerning your purpose? Right? And we can often put those purpose things on the back burner, but they are very impactful as well. So you can be missing an opportunity to change a life or to save a life when you don't do what you were purposed to do. And then you have long-term priorities, which fulfilling those short-term priorities allow you to accomplish, right? So your spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical health need to include nourishment, exercise, protection, right? Preventive maintenance. There's things that you can be doing that should have a priority in your health, right? And I'm talking about across the board, every category, right? Spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical health. There needs to be nourishment, exercise, prevention, protection, right? In your health. These are priorities. You determine which one that you value most and put them in order. In your relationships, there needs to be love, honor, respect, communication, time, right? These are things that you should talk about, especially if you desire to get married or if you are married. What is it that you all value in your relationship? What is the priority? Is the priority to spend time together? Is the priority love, honor, respect? Where's the value? Your priority will align with what you value. Your purpose. Your purpose should include vision. It should include planning, right? And don't just plan the plan, plan to do, right? There should be a completion of those the purpose that you have. Some small completions, right? That build up to the bigger thing being fulfilled. So these lists that you make are your roadmaps. It places you on the path of God's plan, on your purpose. Okay. It places you in the path of others, and then others are placed in your path to see the purpose fulfilled. Okay. So when was the last time you checked your value system? Is it still the same as when you were 15? I hope not, unless you're 15, right? Your value system must mature. What's important to a 5-year-old is not the same as what's important to a 10-year-old, right? The value changes. And so sometimes circumstances in your life changes, and what's more important to you, that means other things are shifted around. So did you allow it to shift, or are you still trying to keep them equal? And these changes that happen in your life, they can happen like gradually over time, like as you age, as your children get older, as you change careers, things like that. They can happen gradually, or sometimes it's an instant, like something happens instantly without warning. But your foundation remains the same. Where you place the people and things on top of that foundation can and will be rearranged as you go throughout this life. Okay. So if you don't have a set foundation to build everything else on, your priorities will be out of order. Okay. And as we go through life, as we live, there are things that happen as we go. Your foundation remains the same. Okay. You're authentic, right? You are nourished. You don't change the fact that your spirit needs to be fed. Your body has to be fed, right? These are foundational things that doesn't change. Okay. There, you need to be content. There needs to be contentment. There needs to be honor. There needs to be order. There needs to be some sort of discipline. You don't change that. Okay. You build on top of what you've already set for your foundation. So if you don't have a foundation, you need to get one. You need to have a foundation that you put everything else on top of. You just build up from there. So I hope this gave you all some insight on how to prioritize your life, how to put everything in the correct orders, how stressful it can be to try to make things equal that are not equal, right? Just because people that are outside of your authority, they have their own values, right? They have their own priorities, and you don't allow people to push their priorities onto you, right? They have a place in your life, just how you have a place in their life. um and I'm really big on family, and I place priority on my husband and my children. And some people that don't do that, they don't agree with it, and that's okay. You can have your opinion about it, right? But this is still my priority. And I, because of that, my husband flourish, my children flourish, right? Because I don't allow outside things or like opinions of people to change, especially if I'm looking at how your value system is set up and the turmoil, what's going on around you. I'm really not going to consider your opinion about how my priorities are set up, right? And you have to be honest about that, and maybe not tell them like that, but at least tell yourself the truth. Like, yeah, I'm looking at your priorities, and I don't want your opinion, not in this. I might, take your opinion in other matters, But as far as what I prioritize, I'm not going to consider your opinion, because I'm looking at what happens when you don't put things in the correct order. You have to be honest with yourself about that. And especially in dealing with people, as we interact with each other. I mean, we all have strengths and weaknesses. So if you see someone whose priorities in a certain category is working, hey, can you teach me how to do this? Right? What is it that you've done so that you have this outcome? And we are to help each other. And if people want advice, give it to them, right? If they don't want it or they didn't ask for it, you can ask them if they would like some, but you can't force your priorities on other people. A lot of times when people don't prioritize the things that they should, all of us have been through this, where they then try to make them a priority because they didn't put things in the order that they should have, right? And that's simply not your priority. Okay. You have to put things in the right place or you will suffer from it. There's people that have been off the right path for 10 and 15 years because they have people in their lives that they have made a priority over their purpose, okay, over their family. And people have actually lost their family. Husbands and wives have split up because people are not putting things in the right order. Okay, some people put their friends above their spouse. There's people that put their children above their spouse. That's not the right order, right? People have put their jobs before their purpose. It's not the right order. And so think about what you prioritize. What is the most urgent? Are you struggling in the purpose area? Okay, well, it's time to start planning. It's time to start planning with things that you can actually do right now. Don't plan for the things that you know you won't work towards. Plan for the things that you can do right now. Okay? And then have your long-term priorities. Okay, this is where I want to be 5 years from now. But to get to that point, this is what I have to do right now. Okay, so there's some time that may there's some time that you might have to get rid of in another area. You got to put this higher on the priority list, right? And I hope you're making your list to find out what order these things actually are. And in that list, make sure you're sifting through the things that are because of society or because of other people's opinion. Because some things are in the wrong order because of society, because of the pressure of society. Some things are in the wrong order because of people. And it's not even something you value, something you don't even consider. Okay. And then there are some things that people have placed on your mind that you don't want to consider, but it is something you should value, like yourself, right? Like your health, like the longevity of your life, like your legacy. These are things you should consider, right? Also, I want to mention um, there are things that can come like 10 things at one time. Take a moment. Don't just do stuff off fear, off anxiousness. Don't. You want to make these decisions with a sound mind. If it's 10 things come back to back, what is the most urgent? What is the most impactful? That's what I'm going to do first. Focus on that, then go to the next thing. Because when you start thinking about all of the things you have to do, right, you can end up not doing any of them. But you try to get as much as you can done. And if something is left undone and it's not in your control, that is not a priority. We feel like I have to or I had to. But if you cannot control, because you're only given so much time and you're only one person, right? So this is where you want to call on friends, call on family, call on people that can, but you don't want to make your priority their priority because they have their own life and their own values, right? So you don't push something that you could have done onto somebody else, you can ask, right? And I would suggest you ask, but don't come into that space making them feel like they are obligated because this is your priority. It's not their priority, right? We can do that a lot, especially with family members, even in marriages, even in close friendships. We can do that a lot where we want to push our priority because maybe we got overwhelmed. We want to push that and make that somebody else's priority, and it's not. But definitely ask if you know someone who can get it done for you, but also consider their priorities as well when you are asking them. Don't come into it making them feel obligated to take care of your priority. Does that make sense? And that's something that's constantly changing. I think daily we can be faced with something out of the blue and we have to rearrange some things. It helps when you have a wise person or wise counsel to help you sort through that. What's important because sometimes you can't see because you are blinded by your feelings. You are overwhelmed because maybe so many things happen. And so it's good to just take a step back, call someone else whose mind is clear to give you that insight, to give you that wisdom on how to move forward. So you want to be equipped to manage your thoughts, to manage your feelings, to manage your behaviors. And if you don't know how to do that, 71 sessions, you can go through whichever topic that is important to you and just keep going and keep growing. So God bless you all, and I will see you all next Friday at 3 o'clock.